Furious Fisters, this is internet personality Vangelus, and I finally found another member of the first wave of Jada Toys Ultra Street Fighter II action figure line. It's Fei Long, who has got to be some level of overjoyed to be included in the first wave of Street Fighter anything, as I have had a heck of a time finding anybody who has anything nice to say about this guy. You know, as a person. As a toy, I suppose you'll just have to stay tuned to find out. Or scroll to the comments. Look, if you're doing it, at least, raise your hands and be shameless.
This video was sponsored in part by ToyHacks.com. Use the code VANGELXMAS through the month of December 2024 for 15% off your order of labels and other paraphernalia. Using the code supports the channel. Supporting the channel feeds the machine.
Fei Long is not the world's most groundbreaking world warrior, as he is basically a guy from Hong Kong who kinda looks like Bruce Lee, and Jada's rendition feels pretty well done in that context. His shirtless upper body has decent musculature with some very subtle shading to bring out the meat ripple, and his kung fu pantsed lower body is sculpted up to par, featuring some textured striping on the would-be fabric. I have very little to complain about here, other than his abs having a propensity for tilting slightly to one side due to the articulation. As for his base portrait, Fei Long's Fei face has cleanly painted eyes and eyebrows, bringing out the arched aggression of his expression crisply enough for a figure in the retail 6-inch action space. You can easily yank it off the ball to pop on the included alternate head, which is not the one I had hoped for. Rather than something bonkers and screaming, Fei Long can switch his look over to a very mild sneer, revealing some teeth, but barely feeling worth the effort. I don't know what communications led to this, but I am disappointed at the lack of anything open-mouthed. Work that jaw for me! Getting into the hands, Fei Long opens up with predictable and appreciable fists, perfectly punchy and punchily peachy. Popping them off for a swap allows you to get into his alternate pair of hands, which are the kind of sculpts that a catastrophically ignorant person like myself could refer to as kung fu hands. They are delightful and dynamic, and open up the figure's posing options just enough to get into the big accessory. Fei Long includes a massive flaming effect piece with a real nice gradient and a real big hole, and while my finger can fit inside there, so can one of Fei Long's entire legs, allowing him to execute his signature Xian Kyuk attack. This is kinda the feature of the figure, and I would definitely give it a once-over for plasticizer sweat now and then. I would also look into getting a nice display stand, because Fei Long does not include one, and he kinda needs one to make photography-friendly use of this piece. Now, I was wowed by Chun-Li's articulation, Fei Long being it's just like an actor who resembles Bruce Lee shortly after Bruce Lee died kind of vibe. What could he do? He could do, look, I don't even need to get into the specifics of this, but just look at him go. You know, oh, he can look over here, and then just keep going. There's a, ball socket connection thing going on there. You can see the seams, but in practice, the main thing is when you want his head to go somewhere, it goes somewhere. Also, that mid-torso ball socket joint, and then the ball socket joint at his waist, in tandem, they go places. And they're ball socket joints, because they can also go places. They, happen to swivel left and right as well, but, there's a lot going on before we even consider the notion of Fei Long's limbs. And before we get to those upper limbs, there's the butterfly joint Chun-Li didn't have. Oh, is it really any good? Yeah, it kind of friggin' rocks, actually. As far as, a simple construction butterfly joint, check out the range on this forwards and backwards, and it feels good too. And then we get into the basics. There's some minor detenting here, but the plastic is not gummy. It does not fight back against me. I'm able to just swing arms forward, backwards, and outwards. I'm able to swivel bicep. There is a double hinge on the elbow, and it just curls up all the way. There are peg attachment with hinges on the hands. The fist is maybe a little bit harder to tell, but they can bend inwards on that hinge. It's all very pleasant. It doesn't bounce and gummify along the way. Down here in the hips, there's no fig arts hips going on. They just simply, in tandem with a softer plastic diaper of sorts, can just kick forward, can just kick backward, can just go outwards. to a very splittable degree. There's a thigh swivel, it cuts through the pant detailing, I don't really care. He's just wearing baggy pants, and it works. There's a double hinge knee. Oh no, his pants look like they're jointed, but I think it works. And it curls so nicely. There's a sock cut right above his shoe line. There is a fairly solid ankle hinge. That hinge is pinned into the foot so you can swivel at the ankle as well for tilting. There's no toe joint, but on a $30 Canadian figure, on a basically Marvel Legends figure, I'm okay with that not being stock, because everything else feels so good. This is a very fun toy to pose, much like Chun-Li, and not to, like, spoiler it a bit, much like every Jada Street Fighter figure I have messed with so far, that being 4 total as of this recording. Very fun toy to pose, just go wild, do whatever the hell you want. I have not run into any major limitation that did not feel intrinsic to the vibe of the figure or the character, and I have hit poses I kind of didn't think this thing could do until I put him in them, and then, oh, very fun. Mess with one of these if you can, if you haven't already. By the end of 2024, Fei Long's kind of become the shelf warmer and kicked puppy of Jada Toys Street Fighter wares, being a regular fixture at a couple of Canadian Walmarts, and the figure folks seem to talk about the least in my circles. And that's fair. He's a bit of a boring guy, a bit of a straightforward figure, and his major feature is a huge soft plastic accessory that needs a bit of help from an additional display stand of your choice. But if this is the line at its least engaging, Fei Long is still a really solid piece. There's very little critically wrong with this figure, and he suffers mostly for being Fei Long. He's still fun to pose and immensely photogenic, but stack this guy up next to Jada's M. Bison, and he simply implodes into obscurity. Hey, at least he got in during the first wave, before the line really began to pick up steam. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I once again nod my head thankfully to all my Patreon patrons and YouTube members, whose generosity gives me the gumption to go 2 for 2 on attempting silent action scenes in the B-roll of these Street Fighter figures.